6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order.
Amy Teal. Present. Vicki Wilson. Here. Valerie Peacock. Here. Cheryl Taylor West.
Here.
Jason. All members are present. We have a quorum.
Line item 3, invocation, will be led by Councilwoman Cheryl Taylor West.
I would like to thank our God for the many blessings we have, that we are able to convene together peacefully in a country where we have the freedom to practice our own beliefs and values, where everyone is considered a unique individual and accepted for who they are. We welcome discussions among our individual thoughts and ideas, especially those that are presented with great consideration and respect. We come together not as one, but as a community that seeks to create the best quality of life for all that live here in this very special place. This week marks a new national holiday, one that is the result of hard work and determination of a friend of mine, Dr. Opal Lee, a sweet 90-year-old African-American woman who gained national attention in her efforts to recognize the day of June 19th or Juneteenth as a hallmark of our democracy, commemorating the original civil liberty of freedom. Miss Lee, a Texas native and a resident of Fort Worth, can be an example of using one's voice collectively to bind people together and exercise civility, even when we do not all agree. In the words of President Abraham Lincoln, government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And in a later quote, he spoke, I am very little inclined on any occasion to say anything unless I hope to produce some good from it. An old Chinese proverb states that humans have 2 ears, but only 1 mouth. Therefore, wouldn't we be wiser to listen more than we speak while thinking of the effects our words have on others? Help us to become better listeners and to attempt to be more understanding of people that are less fortunate than us. Let us build a reputation for being one of the most loving communities in our great state and in our nation. Give strength to the leaders and to the members of this community to do the right thing for everyone concerned. Let us grow in peace and in love. Thank you, God, for our many blessings as we go forward. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Line item 5, public comments and receipt of petitions. At this time, anyone will be allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters. Any matter not specifically listed for public hearing elsewhere on the agenda or matters under litigation for length of time not to exceed 4 minutes. No counsel or discussion or action may take place on a matter until such matter has been placed on an agenda and posted in accordance with the Texas Government Code 551042. We'll go into public comments at 6:04. Rachel Myers, if you'll take the podium and state your name and address, please.
Rachel Myers, 610 FM 2960, Whitney, Texas 76692. Can I start now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Myers. I attend Whitney Fellowship Church, and we are having a VBS this year. So kids are going to be coming, and during the week, they're going to be learning that God has a plan for our life. And part of that plan is for us to be in a community. And so they're going to be in families, teams, competing all week long, relying on each other to win these competitions and do these things. And so that Sunday, July 13th, we're going to be having our final competition. And the final competition is going to be each team gets to invite as many people as they know or persuade as many of our churchgoers to join their team. And they're going to see who can push the fire engine from point A to point B the fastest. And because we have a wonderful police department and a wonderful fire department, they have volunteered to bring out the trucks. So it's turned into a bit of a touch-a truck. And so we are needing to close down the streets by our church, so Railroad and Brazos. And we hope for your approval. We're really excited for this event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Corson.
My name is Joe Corson. I live at 818 FM 3050 in Whitney. I am not here on a capacity for WWFL. I've resigned from, or not resigned, but I've finished my tour of duty with them. But I've stayed in contact with them, and I've stayed helping them, recruiting kids, helping with fields and everything like that. I just want to try to see what the disconnect is between WWFL and city. From what I hear walking around the ballpark from other towns that are there about how our bathrooms look, how our fields usually look, but they look great this year. It's because WWFL has put they told me almost $15,000 into the city park, getting it ready for this year's baseball season, softball season. They put in over $5,000 into Bakerfield. So, I mean, we're trying to make a community with team sports and get them ready for the next level. And we can't really do that if our bathrooms aren't working, or they're locked up, or the lights aren't working, or we got broken poles or missing poles. None of the scoreboards work. I know we're talking about budget, money wanting to go in, come out, but I think youth sports brings people to the community, because if I'm wearing a or the championship for our football team, this past year we won it, 5th and 6th grade. Our girls for softball last year went to a state championship. They lost, but they went. This year we're in contention for softball again. But it's, we need help. We need to work together as a community to make sure that our facilities are up to par. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Killebrew.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Killebrew. I live at 608 Bush Drive. And in front of you, I have given you a paper. Dear City Council members, we are here writing to request your help and attention regarding the worsening condition of our road and the lack of response we've received in recent months from city staff. When we purchased our home several years ago, the condition of the road was not a concern. In fact, the day we visited the property, the city crew were out maintaining the road, and there's still a city sign posted in front of our house that reads, "City Maintenance Ends." This along with the prompt response of to our maintenance requests in the early years reassured us that the city was committed to keeping the road in good condition. When drainage and flooding issues began to develop on our end of the street, we communicated with the city and were pleased to learn that a culvert installation was planned to help manage the runoff. Unfortunately, after the change in administration and council, the project was halted and no further progress has been made. The situation has now deteriorated significantly. The area in front of our fence line is no longer safe to maintain due to a sharp drop-off left unfinished by the city. I can't mow it, and yet you're asking me to maintain the right-of-way. Flooding was worsened because there is no longer a proper runoff. The potholes have grown increasingly large and deep, and as you can see on some of the pages that I've taken photos of, making the road nearly impassable and hazardous to the navigation without swerving from side to side. We don't drive down our road like you're supposed to, because you cannot without running your car. More concerning is the lack of communication and response that we report with these issues. Calls to City Hall results in a vague assurance that messages will be passed along, yet no one comes out to access the road. We see nobody. We're the last house in the city on that road. Requests for callbacks from Public Works go unanswered. My husband recently visited City Hall in person, only to be met with hostility from the city managers, and I thought it was the city managers, but I understand you don't have one. Some secretary, who refused to look at the photos we had taken and slammed the door after stating, "I'm not going to argue with you," even though he was calm and respectful. He said, "I just want to show you the photos. I just want you to see how bad it is." We've been told that the city has no gravel, asphalt, or equipment to address the road conditions. This raises important questions. Has the city received any state funds for road improvements? Are our city tax dollars being allocated properly? What can be done to get this critical issue addressed? We're not asking for perfection, only for fairness. And I understand that we're not the only road, but I'm here to be as the squeaky wheel. All of the residents, and there are 11 of us on that road, are suffering from the condition of the road. We just want to be in partnership with the city leaders. We respectfully ask that the city council investigate the current conditions of our road. I would like to see you guys drive down that road. We're the last house. Call. We'll let you in. That the city investigate the current conditions of our road and the status of the culvert project. Come look at that ditch that's in front of my property. It's so full of mosquitoes, it's unreal because of all the rains. And the lack of response from city staff. We would be grateful for a path forward and to know that our concerns are being heard and
What time
taken
is that?
seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tom Killebrew.
I'm Tom Killebrew, 608 Bush Drive, Whitney, Texas. And I'm here because I'm asking for help from the city council and mayor. Obviously, I've not gotten any help from the mayor, but I understand she's busy. But in the council, if you're assigned anything, I'd appreciate it if we knew where you were assigned to, or your name's in front of your thing is just a piece of cardboard in front, just to tell us who you are. That's good city government, and be able to let us know who we're talking to. And thank you. But you're taking my time. And so sure enough, see, we chased a prowler out of our back behind our yard last Friday. Normally the police come out there at 10 o'clock. That's when he was there. And the police don't come down now because the road's so bad. We appreciate it if the police can come back and come by our area and help us keep those prowlers out. The roadway's not kept up, obviously. There's tree branches and limbs hanging over the road. There's not a way for 2 cars to pass without getting in the ditch. And a big truck can't get by without getting scratched up and tore up. We're not sure about the fire hydrant down there, if it works or not on the end of the city of Bush Drive. I'd like to check from the fire department, see if it is. They took out the other fire hydrant down in the middle of the street and put in a clean out. That's a fire clean out. Instead of a fire hydrant, that reduces the fire insurance on all the houses within 300 foot of that fire hydrant. So they just did that to save money. We put city approved internet throughout the city, but we're putting a lot of money into the library. There's surely a good reason why, unless there's a future use for it. I don't know what. But instead of having future money for the library, we could have money that we could use right now and on streets that are very in need of it. I was told that we're not the only street in the city that is bad like that. Well, we are. And there's other cities in the Lake Whitney area. Yes, I know they're that bad. But if you drive down that road, I will help you fix your car. Okay. And it's that bad. But the other thing is, we got a $40,000 water bill. Okay. We don't use any water from the city. It's a meter in case I need it. I got a well, but I got a $40 water bill, $40,000 water bill, and they haven't fixed it yet. And so they're just leaving it there in case they need to come against us for a $40,000 hit. I've asked them for 4 months to try to take that off. And they said they'd had to have somebody come down there and check the meter and verify it and then come fix it. It's not. I appreciate any help we can get. We love this city. We moved here because we did, and we want to continue to help in any way we can. And if he needs help with any of the plumbing, I'd be glad to help and volunteer to help to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we cannot comment, but we can address matters of fact. Do we have a matter of fact as to whether that fire hydrant that he mentioned is working?
Fire hydrant was removed because it's on a 4-inch line, and per state standards in the TCEQ and water lines, a fire hydrant cannot be for fire protection on a 4-inch line.
Thank you.
Denise Sambora.
I'm Denise Zamora. I live at 373 Lake Whitney Drive, Whitney, Texas, 76692. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Denise Zamora, and I'm the founder of Pause Place Rescue Inc., a registered 501c3 nonprofit animal rescue located just outside of Whitney city limits. I operate a private community-funded sanctuary. I'm here tonight because the animal crisis in Whitney has reached a breaking point, and no one in the city is doing anything about it. Let's be clear. There is no city-run animal control, no shelter, no structure, and no accountability. When someone finds a stray, a dumped litter, or an injured animal, there is nowhere to turn, no response team, no holding facility, no help. The responsibility falls on the public or on rescues like mine. And frankly, we're overwhelmed. I do what I can, but I live outside the city. I rely entirely on donations. I also have to be selective with intakes, not just for the safety of my livestock, but because of my own health. I'm physically limited in what I can take on, especially with certain breeds. I work alone, and I cannot risk the well-being of myself or the animals already in my care. So when I say no, where do these animals go? Because right now, there's nowhere. And the most urgent issue in this city continues to ignore its dumping. Animals are being thrown out like trash, tied to trees, left in fields, abandoned in parking lots, and there are no consequences, no accountability, no enforcement. Let me be very clear. This is not the community's job to fix. It is the city's responsibility, and this board has failed to even take the most basic steps to address it. Whitney needs real animal control. We need a city-run shelter that takes action, not someday, but now. We need code enforcement with strict enforceable anti-dumping laws. People who dump animals should face real penalties. You cannot keep turning a blind eye to this problem while animals suffer and residents are left with no support. The public is doing more than their share. The city has done nothing. The excuses need to stop. The delays need to stop. The silence needs to stop. Fund a shelter, hire qualified animal control, enforce anti-dumping laws, and for once, step up and do the job you were elected to do. Thank you.
Stefania Shelby.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. My name's Stefania Shelby. I live at 509 East Roosevelt, Whitney, Texas, 76692. As most of you know, not all of you, but most of you, I started in June of 2024 assisting the city with their animal control. I worked with the now no longer city or no longer animal control officer, to help with animals. We had a facility at one time. We don't have it anymore. But as Denise did state, the animal crisis is terrible in Whitney. But I would like the city council and the citizens to know there is still a shelter in Whitney. There is still help in Whitney. We have 3 people that are working. I currently have animals at my house, and 2 of my other people still have people at their house. I answer calls every single day. I'm still rehoming. I'm still spaying. I'm still fixing. We have 9 cats left at the church. In July of last year, we had 49 cats at the church. Myself and 2 volunteers have caught all of them, spayed, neutered, and rehomed. We have 1 female left and a litter of 6 kittens. I do agree that the city does need to do something. I know it's a money issue. We were told in October of 2024 that the city council did approve the building of a shelter and to be run by a nonprofit. That is the reason I started the nonprofit, so that I could assist the city and run it. But it didn't happen. We lost our building. We lost our animal control officer. I lost help. I live in city limits. I can't have all the animals. I currently have animals everywhere. Fosters everywhere. Waco, you name it, I've got it. Mejia. We need help, just like Denise stated. I know it's a money issue, but I also know there are buildings that can be used. There are areas that we can use. We can all come together and figure it out. It's not that much. We need a building, 4 walls, sink, toilet, accessible to water, place to put kennels. That's all we need, and we can run a shelter. Thank you.
Ann Chastain,
Hello, everyone, and thank you for letting me speak. I'm Ann Chastain. I'm representing the vendors from our Whitney Farmers Market. And we had a meeting last night of all the participants of the farmers market, and all of us were in total agreement that we wanted to offer our thank you and our great appreciation to the council for approving our permit to be on Brazos Street between Washington and Railroad. Our very first opening day, we had 3,300 views on our Facebook page. We had started with 5, we're up to 7. We may have 10 vendors this week, but if it weren't for the council helping support the market, we wouldn't have had a place this year. So I appreciate that. I'm only a facilitator. I'm not really part of it, but we wanted to tell you how much we appreciate it. Second thing is we're trying to get more people downtown, and we wanted to announce that we have 2 events scheduled for the farmers market. On July 5th, we're actually doing a community picnic within the bounds. We're encouraging people to get fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and have some of, we're having maybe, I don't know what we're gonna do yet. And our theme is red, white, and you. And it's how do we bring the community together? So July 5th, mark the calendar, save the date, watch for further details. We have a second piece that will be coming up toward the end of July, which I hope to be on the agenda for that. We would like to celebrate our famous bench. It will be 103 years old this year. And we're gonna have a bench party, again, farmers market right in the middle, so we'll have cake and lemonade, but more details will be following on that. But again, from all the vendors who have been at the market, thank you very much for approving the permit.
thank you. Come out of public comments at 6:23. Consent agenda, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion. Should a council member desire a discussion of any item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately.
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 7.
Okay. Line item 6, act on the meeting minutes for May 13th, 2025, Canvas meeting and the May 22nd, 2025 meeting. I would like to add that line item 6 does have, prior minutes do have a small error on them. It says that the council voted to move forward with Team Zach for services. The council did not. They asked for more information. They wanted more information on that. We have a motion.
I'll move acceptance of the minutes. Yes.
Vicky? Valerie? Cheryl?
Yeah.
Jason?
Yes.
Oh, yes, motion passes.
On item 7, act on the City of Whitney expense reports and register report for May 2025.
Yeah, I had a few quick things. On the check register, there is an expense for Team Solutions, Inc. for 44,000. Everything else seems fairly routine from what I understand. Can you give a quick, what's Team Solutions?
Christie?
The cameras. Okay, got it. And I see we have 4 $10 charges, checks to our recount committee. So I'd like to thank the recount committee. There were 4 people: Jason Sneed, Keith Reed, Scott Pelham, and Tanya Booth. Please tell them thank you. They earned a whopping $10 apiece for that service. Thank you, guys. I think that was an important thing that helped a lot of people just have some reassurance in the process. And then on the statement of revenue and expenditures, page 13, we have a debt service fund for a 2006 CO. I wasn't here in 2006. So I was wondering if I could get some information, or if we could all get some information about the 2006 CO principle that's on here.
That was cool.
Thank you.
And to be clear, Christie, that's our last payment or very close to of the last payment?
No, we just refinanced it in 2017 and it won't be up until 20.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something else.
Thank you. And with that, I will move adoption.
Amy?
No.
Yes. Valerie? Yes. Cheryl?
Yeah.
Jason?
Yes.
One no, motion passes.
Thank you. Move down to the department reports, the mayor's report. We have couple of proclamations. Is there anybody here from the Amateur Radio Club? We have a proclamation. Whereas amateur radio operators worldwide are celebrating over the century of the remarkable achievement and transmitting of human voice across the airwaves. And whereas the amateur radio continues to provide a bridge among peoples, societies, and nations, fostering friendship and the exchange of ideas. And whereas amateur radio operators have devoted countless hours to public service, providing vital assistance in emergencies and supporting local organizations over many decades. And whereas these valuable services are offered wholly without compensation by dedicated volunteers, and whereas the state of Texas and the city of Whitney recognize the important contribution of amateur radio operators to our many emergency response organizations, including Whitney Amateur Radio Club. And whereas these individuals further serve the public by providing free communication for local parades, bike-a-thons, walk-a-thons, fairs, and other charitable and public events. And whereas the city of Whitney appreciates the vigilance of these hams who are also served as weather spotters in the Skywarn program and the National Weather Service. And whereas the ARRL, the National Association of Amateur Radio in the USA, sponsors the annual Amateur Radio Field Day exercise, which will take place June 28th, 29th, 2025, as a 24-hour demonstration of emergency preparedness and the self-sufficiency of radio amateurs to provide communications without reliance on existing infrastructures. Therefore, I, Janice Sanders, Mayor of the City of Whitney, do proclaim the week of June 22nd to the 23rd, 25 Amateur Radio Week in the City of Whitney. Another proclamation we have, whereas Juneteenth, observed annually on June 19th, commemorates a historic day in 1865 when enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, received word of their emancipations more than 2 years after signing the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas Juneteenth stands as a powerful reminder of the enduring strength and resilience of African American communities, honoring the struggles and achievements of who they have fought for freedom, dignity, and equality. And whereas this day provides the opportunity for all citizens to reflect on the past, to educate yourselves with the importance of civil rights, and to recognize the ongoing pursuit of justice and equality for all. And whereas the City of Whitney is committed to fostering a spirit of unity, inclusion, and mutual respect among the residents, and recognizes the value of commemorating important milestones in our nation's journey toward freedom. And whereas Juneteenth is a time for celebration, reflection, renewed dedication to the principles of liberty and justice that unite our community and our country. Therefore, I, Janice Sanders, Mayor of the City of Whitney, do hereby proclaim the week of June 19, 2015, Juneteenth Day. Department of Emergency Services.
Honorable Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity. In the month of May, on the EMS side, we ran 56 calls. 60 were in the city and 5 were out in the county covering for care flight. Our average response time for the EMS calls, it was 5 minutes in the city and 9 minutes out in the county. On the fire side, we ran 119 calls. 7 fire calls were in the city, 13 fire calls were out in the county. We also ran 53 first responder calls with the medic here in the city and 46 first responder calls with care flight out in the county. Our total calls for the month of May was between fire and EMS with 175.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Police Department report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. May last month, 2025, Police Department responded to 395 calls for service, mostly involving disturbances, thefts, alarm calls, and welfare concerns. Made a total of 2 arrests, along with 203 traffic stops, resulting in 259 citations and warnings. On the animal control code enforcement side, the police department received 4 calls for service involving animals, a dog at large, dead animals, snake removal, and a welfare concern, along with 3 calls for code enforcement. Basically this time of year, tall grass, that's our major issue right now. And the only other issue is that we still have several properties throughout the city with the brush piles, but I'm trying to educate them as I go and talk to people at the properties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last month, we had 2 major water leaks that we had to repair. Since I wrote the support, we had 1 backhoe go down. We had to rebuild the brakes in it. Our city parks updates, we had a couple issues several times during the week where somebody broke the floor drains and filled the drains with rocks, which involved flushing them out and burning up countless hours doing that. But I think we've got that solved now. And we had 8 after hours water calls and 5 sewer calls.
Thank you. Library report.
Good evening. For the month of May, we issued 40 new library cards, served a total of 1,391 visitors. We had 27 unique programs, and out of those events, 295 attendees.
almost 1,300 items checked out. We had 8 volunteers throughout the month, working a total of 17 volunteer hours. For continuing education, staff had 8 hours of continuing education, and the director had 4. Our average patrons visiting per day were 82.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Municipal court,
For the month of May, we had a total of 97 violations that required citations, a total collection of $5,703.70.
thank you. Move over to our regular agenda, line item 8, deliberate and act on making the city council meeting packets available to the public by publishing the packet online before the meeting, generally when the agenda is posted.
Being made available to the public and some of the challenges regarding state laws of privacy. Whitney is a type A municipality, and the wording must be specific as what we can and cannot do. No assumptions are allowed. Councilwoman Peacock, you brought up previous privacy issues at the last meeting. Can you share them with us again?
I would really like for the privacy things not to be reported, like addresses, phone numbers of our employees, background searches, incomes, their child support, such as that. That's not anybody's business. That doesn't need to be out to the public.
Thank you. Those are all valid, very valid concerns. Councilwoman Taylor West, I believe you had some issues that you wanted to talk about.
Yes, many people that know me here know that I also am a retired city employee, 20 years with the other city known as Arlington, Texas, 20 years as a city employee. I was in my young 20s and a single parent when I began working for the city fresh out of graduate school. And it would have been very intimidating to me to think that my personal information, because I was an employee of any organization, was made public. I wasn't running for a political office. I was looking for a good job, better than fast food, to raise a 2-year-old. And I would never have wanted my personal information to be publicized to the public. Elected officials, that's another issue. I wasn't an elected official. I was a very low-ranking peon employee that worked my way up during those 20 years.
Thank you very much. That's very valid concern. This was on last month's agenda, and we had some challenges. So we were introducing, again, this month to address the concerns and get the correct wording for the motion so that we can move forward with the additional avenue to share the information with the public. Hopefully, with the revision of the wording of the motion, this will address the privacy concerns of the council members and the public so that we can meet the requirements to execute the motion. I move that the City of Whitney provides a public version of the city council packet minus any private information protected by the state law. This will be provided online.
I'll second that. And I have a question for our city attorney.
Yes.
Are we allowed to craft a motion that violates state law? No. So any way that we word this motion, we must release information that is already subject to the Public Information Act.
No. If it's subject, that would be one of the things. If you wanted, you're not required by law, under
Right.
the Open Meetings Act, to post your packet, only your agenda. Packet is just public benefit or just extra information. It's not required. It would need to be scrutinized before placing online for any information that should not be released
generally your guide's going to be the Public Information Act, what can and can't be released under that. Because of that additional scrutiny, it will take more time to do your agenda and packet, and that would need to be taken into consideration. Our law firm could offer that service of reviewing it to make sure nothing is being posted. But obviously that just to be honest, you would incur the fees of our law firm doing that. But if you truly want to make it public, it can be done. There's plenty of cities that put their packets online, but it is reviewed to make sure nothing is going out in the public that would violate privacy, confidentiality, anything like that. So you can craft a motion to do it, but it would need to be something along the lines, if you want to do that, to comply with Texas law, you could just have it
In accordance with the Public Information Act.
or yes, just
And
law, something to
right.
that effect.
And if this council adopts a motion that the city chooses to not release information that is subject to the Public Information Act, then a resident can still request a packet that meets the Public Information Act scrutiny, correct?
Well, the packet itself is subject to the Public Information Act. Anybody can do that. What
Right.
would happen is that would have to be reviewed pursuant to that to see what can be released publicly. What would have to actually require possibly an AG's opinion for release or withholding.
Right.
So as it stands now, the packet that is given to council could be requested through a Public Information Act. That would be reviewed against those provisions.
Mm-hmm.
So your packet would have to change
Right.
in when you post it. And that would be what you have available to you for the meetings as well. That is generally what's posted publicly is given to the council members in preparation. At least from my previous city, that's what we did. I mean, it took us 3 weeks to get a packet agenda ready to go. But that was my previous city. So it can be done. And so if that's something that the council wants and wants staff to direct staff to do that, y'all can do that.
And to address the concerns that were voiced, regardless how intimidated a city employee may be, certain information is still public record and we cannot change that.
Some of it is, but there's a lot
Right,
of
certain. Right.
But it would be reviewed.
Correct.
Most city employees, but there is certain stuff that cannot be released. And there's certain provisions, and that would be, especially once maybe if our firm reviewed it in advance, y'all got the hang of it, and it became something staff could do on their own. But probably at the beginning, and that's going to take a lot of time. Like, I don't know when, you have to at least post your agenda 72 hours in advance.
Right.
Your agenda, because it's not required by law, you have a little wiggle room there, but usually you want to post them at the same time. You do. So you would have to take that into consideration of when are agenda items going to be due to leave adequate time to review that packet to make sure nothing is going out that would violate Public Information Act. So, that's something it can be done. Like I said, it's not required by law to post it. You're only required to post your agenda.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Why would I want to release public information to the people? Because if you're concerned about something being released that is actually private, that's not allowed under the law. What it sounds like to me is that there is a concern that information that has been ruled to be public information is perceived as private information. And I read the state law last time. I didn't write this. Your state legislatures wrote this. And I'm going to read it again into the record. Under the fundamental philosophy of the American constitutional form of representative government that adheres to the principle that government is the servant and not the master of the people, it is the policy of this state that each person is entitled, unless otherwise expressly provided by law, at all times to the complete information about the affairs of government and the official acts of public officials and employees. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. We do not have the right to decide.
What statute?
Yes, Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 552, Public Information, Subchapter A, General Provisions. The people insist on remaining informed so that they may retain control over the instruments they have created. The provisions of this chapter shall be liberally construed to implement this policy. B, this chapter shall be liberally construed in favor of granting a request for information. We are already required by law that if somebody requests this entire packet that nobody out there has, we have to release everything that is subject to the Public Information Act.
There are also, it would have to be reviewed because there would be possible items that need to be withheld pursuant to the
Correct.
Information Act, which needs the Attorney General to take
Yes.
45 days to review it.
Right, but
So-
we can't decide to not release a mayor's salary or not release something just because we don't want to.
There are certain things that are very much public information. There's also
Yes.
certain things that are mandatory exemptions.
Right,
Meaning I don't have to ask the Attorney General. I know I can withhold that without asking the Attorney General.
correct. And that's why we have city attorneys. That's why we would basically hand this to the attorney and say, review this in accordance with the Public Information
And
Act.
then we can do that. Just know that it will increase a lot of time.
Will increase time, it will cost the city money that you don't want to spend.
We're already required to do this when it's requested. Whether we do it as a matter of routine or not.
Bring up the open request thing. There have been many open requests requests made to the city. I believe from the count that I got, we had 1 to 2 in a 5.5 month period to 3 or 4 a month to 9 in the last 2 weeks. This takes up city staff time. Keeps them from doing their job that they were required to do. Therefore, I think that we're going to end up having to hire a part-time person just to handle all these open requests, which will then require us to put it to the attorney, which will increase our fees because of all of this. So that needs to be put into the budget, I believe.
Madam Mayor, may I make a comment, please? I think we've gotten far off of the actual what we're looking to do here. I believe that everybody wants to release this packet. And I get the impression that the council wants to improve. What they're concerned about is what could be private information. Things, as the counselor said, the law already clearly outlines what is considered private and what is not. Whether anybody wants it to be, when you come to work for a government agency, you take it as an understanding that you are now subject to certain things under law. For instance, salaries is public information. There's nothing you can do to change that. That's going to be there. That's outlined in the law. There is a way that people can protect themselves from having certain private information released by signing a form. That's outlined in the law as well. So I think that what the city should do is, if the council so directs, is we will have to define a process in which, if we're going to release a 354-page packet, that we're going to have to jump on that way ahead of what normally we do, okay? If the council so directs, we will then send that to the legal department for redaction. Then that public packet can be released if the council so directs. It seems like everybody wants that to happen. I think we have a difference of opinion of what is private and what is public. I have forwarded every council person here the Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act training. Highly encourage you to look at that if you have not done so. It will give you a better insight into this. We can define a process. What we can't do is determine right now what that process looks like until we know what your directive is. I just need to know which way to go with this. I'm And I conclude. I yield.
Billy. And for the record, yes, this all does take time, but this is the basic routine workings of the city. And the whole point of doing it or adopting, releasing it as a matter of routine is to streamline that process. That way, there is no more question about it. The attorneys have taken a look at it. It's ready to go. Everybody who shows up to our meetings, because this is more than a lot of little towns have, can have the same information, well, close to the same information that we've got, and they can show up and be informed about what's going on.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yes, we do. Can we repeat the motion in a second, please?
I move that the city of Whitney provides a public version of the city council packet minus any private information protected by state law and be provided online.
I'll second that.
And so, roll call, Amy Teal,
Yes.
Valerie, Vicky Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yea or nay?
No.
Cheryl Taylor West,
No.
Jason Ince.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Line item 9, presentation from Westwood Engineering on master drainage plan under the FEMA resiliency program.
All right, let's get on to some other
Yeah.
items. So we had the opportunity to meet Westwood at TML conference last October, and we've been working with them on some other things. Recently, the council approved a resiliency program through FEMA. Westwood Engineering was selected as that engineer. One of the things that we recently had a meeting about was what we could do to do some mitigation in this town. And with that, we're going to have a presentation from Westwood here and kind of look at what we've done. Now, we've said this many, many times before in meetings, but with our road situation, we're going to talk about this in a couple more items here, but with our road situation in this town, we have a drainage problem. We have a drainage problem because we have a flood zone through the middle of our town that hasn't been touched in a long time. Now, we sent a letter up to Washington, D.C., asking for the Corps of Engineers to step in and help for us on this. Thank goodness we now have a contact with somebody that used to be closely associated with the Corps, and we hope that they'll help move on that because they have a responsibility to help maintain that as well as we do. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over, and that way he can kind of outline what the process here is and what this looks like going forward.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, City Council. My name is J.W. Balch, and I'm a licensed civil engineer and a certified floodplain manager in the state of Texas. And I work with Westwood Professional Services. We're a multidisciplinary civil engineering firm. And my specialty is in drainage, flood studies, FEMA permitting, master drainage planning, just the sort of things that we're about to talk about. Could you get the next slide? Thank you, sir. As Billy mentioned, we were competitively selected to help with HMA grant funding engineering services. We did meet with city staff, and the first thing is, okay, you guys posted this RFQ. What do we want to fix? So we talked about some of the priorities and some of the flooding risks in the area, and what we could possibly do to fix it. And as Billy has mentioned, the city of Whitney has a lot of needs. It's streets, water, sewer, drainage, all of that stuff. Without fixing the drainage, though, you're kind of it's like you can't fix the streets and the sewer without fixing the drainage first, because you're gonna ruin the streets later. Water ponding on the streets is not good for the streets. If your sewer is, you're gonna get infiltration. So it's important to fix the drainage first. And so what we've talked about is potentially doing a master drainage plan for the city, and using this master drainage plan to apply for FEMA FMA grant funding. There's really two grants that are available. There's FEMA FMA, and that's the one that we we want to target the most. And then there's also Texas Water Development Board, flood infrastructure funds. That's a little bit less beneficial to the city. There's a lot of like 0% loans that are associated with that. And then the grant terms, you may not get as high of a federal or state match. The other thing is we talked about that project prioritization and how we could phase these projects and create a holistic analysis to eliminate drainage issues in the city. Here's a GIS map that we produced out of this, and you can see that it's pretty much ordered, downstream to upstream, and that's really the gist of it. Is we have to fix the problems downstream first before we were able to see any benefits upstream. You see, area number 1 is by the treatment plant, and what I've noticed from that, just looking at it from GIS, there's an encroachment from the sewer plant on the floodplain, and that impedes all the water that's trying to drain through the city. There's also heavy stand of trees and vegetation that's obstructing the floodplain. Area number 2 is kind of a similar situation. It's just a very poorly maintained channel, and it's not excavated. We can increase the capacity of that channel, and that'll help drain the city. Area number 3, I know that there is a apartment complex at that corner. Billy has mentioned that 3 inches of rain and they've got to evacuate people. So that's a high priority target for us. And area number 4 is a bunch of structural flooding. So people's homes that are getting flooded anytime it rains. Areas 5 and 6 are I would probably consider them to be more localized issues. And if we channelize the water there and improve the conveyance, that would substantially help with the draining the streets and any residential flooding that's up there. The map on there, the blue lines that you see, that's the FEMA 100-year floodplain that's published by FEMA, and it's adopted. I looked at the flood insurance study for the county, and it hasn't been touched since 1988. No studies have been done, as far as we are aware, since 1988. And that was using very outdated technology. They used to use them they used to do the modeling with punch cards. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Could you go to the next slide? So here's again the 2 funding opportunities that we're talking about. FEMA FMA, the Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant Program. That's federal funding for projects that reduce or eliminate the risk of flood damage to structures insured under the NFIP. So that's kind of the key word there, is that it needs to reduce structural flooding. So think of people's homes, the apartment complex, commercial properties, stuff like that. And the benefit, why I love this program so much is it provides 90% federal funding. That's grants to that community with a 10% local match. We've thrown the Texas Water Development Board FIF funding up there because we can use that to help support the local match. And potentially eliminate the cost to the city, if possible. That is pretty hard to do though, and so it's generally used as kind of like a backup and like support for the FMA program. Next slide. Here's some more about the FMA program. The types of projects that we can do with FEMA FMA, we can do project scoping. So that would be a master drainage plan. And that's basically identifying like all the projects that we need to do in the city, and then putting them on a prioritization list and figuring out how they score. We can also do flood mitigation projects, which is really what the city needs. That's the end goal. Like we need to get a flood mitigation project to fix a city, and then it can also help with management costs. So the city is having to devote resources and staff to administer this program. There's up to a 5% allowance for the total cost of the project that can get refunded to the city if selected. So some of the project eligibility requirements is that it must be a cost-effective project. We can calculate the anticipated benefits from a particular project, and then we compare them to the costs. So the construction costs of the project. And if that ratio is greater than 1, then it is a cost-effective project. And then it can be eligible for FMA funding. The community must be participating in the NFIP. It must meet applicable NFIP flood insurance policy requirements. And we also have to have a hazard mitigation plan. As far as we know, I think that the city of Whitney hits all of those requirements. There's also some environmental and historical preservation requirements. And there's some other small things out there. You can see a map over there of Texas. You know, Texas has been very active in the FMA program. We've gotten over $530 million in funding since 2015. So it's a very good program for the state of Texas. Next slide. In talking with the city, I just want to put this out there. Master drainage planning it's expensive. It costs money, and you know, we want to be cost conscientious towards the city. We don't want to put you guys in a bad spot. So we want to talk to you and figure out, you know, what are the priorities of the city? Do we want to fast track, you know, getting these projects done, or do we need to go a longer route and reduce costs to the city so that, you know, you guys can devote those funds towards other things? Option A that we're talking about here would be 2 coinciding FEMA FMA applications. And this would require some engineering costs upfront. And we would be designing the projects now, like probably in the next like 3 to 5 months to get ready for the next FMA application window, which would be, you know, it could be between October to January. That's usually when FEMA issues a NOFO, which is a notice of funding opportunity. And then if we go with option A, we would be submitting those 2 FMA applications. One would be to reimburse the city for 90% of the costs of the master drainage planning. And then the other would be to apply for the actual project to fix the city. My experience with the FMA program is that it takes roughly 3 years for you to get funded for these projects. So option B would be a kind of a linear succession of these FMA applications. We could apply now for a master drainage plan and get that money in 3 years. And then we can do a master drainage plan to figure out, you know, what are the projects that we need to do in the city? How do we prioritize them? And then we would then go apply for the projects in 3 years and then wait for another 3 years. So we would be about 6 years out before we actually construct these projects. Next slide. Here's a little bit more about what a master drainage plan is. You know, we're looking at identifying the existing flood risks. And, you know, one of the things that we can do is update that regulatory floodplain. That way the community has accurate depictions of what the floodplain is. We use the latest hydrology and hydraulic modeling software, and we delineate that existing floodplain for planning and for regulatory purposes. You know, we don't want folks building new homes in the floodplain. We also design projects that are going to improve flood resiliency. We reduce the level of flooding across all of the storm events, you know, anywhere from the 2-year storm to a 100-year storm. And we are aimed at reducing structural flooding and, you know, the risk of drowning and deaths. So one of the things that we talked about is potentially doing some low water crossing upgrades. It's pretty evident that there's some, you know, roadway crossings over, you know, Whitney Creek that do not have sufficient capacity. And those are hazardous for vehicles traveling across them. It doesn't take much to get somebody swept off the road. So we would also be trying to improve those low water crossings. Lastly, a master drainage plan is basically a strategic and systematic plan that to fix drainage issues in like an orderly and thought out way. So all of the projects that we're going to create, you know, we are going to rank them from most cost beneficial to least cost beneficial, and there will be a cost associated with each of those projects. So here's some of the costs that we're looking at. If we go with option A, we would be looking at about $115,000. And where I'm getting that number from is phase 1, tasks 1 through 6. So that would be data collection, the hydrology analysis, existing conditions hydraulic modeling, proposed conditions hydraulic modeling, and preliminary construction cost estimates, and then a benefit cost analysis. What I wanted to do was exclude the exhibit preparation and master drainage plan report. That way the city isn't paying out of pocket for those those items. And then once we apply for that FEMA FMA application for the master drainage plan, we would then go back and finish up those three tasks over there. That way you guys have a complete master drainage plan and we're minimizing the cost to the city. Option B would be the slow track. So we would be asking for $16,000, which would be like phase two. And that would be phase two, task 1 and 3. So we would apply for a FEMA FMA grant application to get funded for the master drainage plan. And that would delay construction by approximately 3 years. So with that, we don't have the information or the authority to make that decision. We needed to bring this to council and get your input. So with that, I thank you guys for listening, and I'll take any questions.
So is there any reason why FEMA wouldn't approve us for the 90% refund?
The FEMA FMA program is a competitive program. Now, what I look at with the city of Whitney is, some of the competitive like scoring things that they have is an SVI score, which is a social vulnerability index, and that ranges from 1 to 0, 1 being the highest. The city of Whitney is a 0.97, so it's extremely high social vulnerability. The other metric that we look at is the annual household median income. Here in Whitney, it's about $37,000 per year per household, and that's also a very cost competitive, or it's a very competitive figure to present to FEMA. So with those two numbers, I think that the city has a very good chance of getting funded through this FMA program. I've done FMA applications and been awarded for with less. That's what I'm saying. So.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on down to line item 10, deliberate, act, and give direction on Westwood Engineering Master Drainage Plan under the FEMA Resiliency Program.
Madam Mayor, Council, if I may, I wanted to just reiterate that the city of Whitney has not had any type of engineering study done to this capacity since the year 2000. And again, a lot of the things that we're experiencing in our pinch points are due to a lot of things that have nothing to do with anybody who currently sits here at this table, but have fell in our lap to deal with. And much like I made the appeal and asked the council to move forward with getting a wastewater plant engineered, I'm asking the council to allow us to proceed to get some of these drainage problems fixed so we can get some real roads in this town and quit wasting money patching roads and do this. I yield.
Billy, I heard you say that the last study was done in 1988. Is that correct?
That's the last FEMA floodplain map update.
Yes.
And
And,
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which study Billy's talking about with the 2000.
2000 was a building, planning and capacity study done for the city of Whitney.
Okay.
And that's about the same coincidental time as when I started working for another community, which I know the key cards that you're talking about, that was the most common data being used at the time. That's ancient.
Yes, ma'am.
Ancient. And it's sad that for whatever reason, and I asked not to hear the history of what happened before I came here, but so many years have gone by, now decades, that some of these major issues have not been fixed. And as our city staff is telling us, it's falling in our laps. We may seem like the bad guys, but we own homes here too. We live here too. And it's falling in our laps to make decisions to move, whether we go with the fast term program or the long term program. Either way, it's going to be costly.
That's the only thing that concerns me is the amount of money each one is, guys. But my thoughts on all of this, even before I became a council member, the city as citizens always complained about drainage problems. I think everybody in this room can say yes, nothing's been done. Need to listen to the citizens. They asked years before any of us was on the council to get something done and try to help them with flooding. And ever since I was a little kid, I don't see much changes other than cleaning the creek bottom. And people's houses still get underwater. They're up in the middle of the night trying to drain the water out, trying to divert water away from their houses and everything else. As a council member, I think we need to start listening, or I shouldn't say start listening. We need to start trying to do some actions on trying to help the citizens. This town has always had a flooding problem. So I think we need to move on it, move on something.
I would just like to say that, when I looked at this from a preliminary standpoint, I mean, the FEMA FIS indicates that there's 5 square miles of drainage area coming to the city. That's 5 square miles. That's of runoff that's coming through the city. And that's a lot of water. That's about 8,000 CFS, cubic feet per second. To put that into perspective of like a fire hydrant will produce maybe like 3 CFS. And so you're talking about like, maybe, like 3,000 hydrants going off at one time. So it is a lot of water. I have no doubt that the city has flooding problems.
And I know a lot of this is kind of have some background and overlap in item 23. And if I recall in item 23, there was a note that the floodplain level is actually higher. Is that correct? Or lower than what they originally thought?
No, I think we're talking about the ponds. That's a
Okay,
a separate
okay.
thing, yeah.
And just by way of budget, if this is approved, how will the budget absorb this cost?
So that's something we're gonna have to determine which action the council wants to take, which method. We'll have to do this by resolution and stuff, which we did not present you tonight. This is more of a get guidance from you. What we would have to do is if either one of those was an unbudgeted cost that we didn't plan to do in this year's fiscal year, we would have to do a budget amendment and move funds from reserves to cover it.
So at this point, we basically need a motion to direct staff to draft a resolution for what you just discussed.
That's correct. And then which option you would like to look at so we can kind of get the groundwork, laid for that.
Could we move to direct the staff to work up what each option would look like?